DZ, who some of you may know as the Floating Head after recent events. I don't know. Hi, DZ. How,
How's it going, mate?
how are you doing, man?
I'm doing real good.
Okay, cool. Well, welcome to the Hysteria studio, and I suppose the subject is morality.
Yes.
So I'll start off. I really don't know much about the subject, to be honest, so I'm going to consider this a schooling in objective morality.
Oh,
Um,
no.
from my perspective, the only time I've ever really considered the question of morality was when you're thinking about a bird eating a caterpillar, right? So what is moral for the bird because it needs to survive is not necessarily moral for the caterpillar. And that's literally it. That's as far as I've ever looked into it. So you've got the floor, mate.
Okay, that's fair. That's a fair argument. At first, I know a typical. It's the same thing that what's it Nephilim free and fucking true empiricism do play semantics games. But I just want to first make sure that what I'm saying falls definitely in line with objectivity. So first of all, that which is defined as objective is something that is not influenced by personal feelings or opinions in considering and representing facts.
That
Now,
sounds
say
fair.
for instance, objective morality, all that means is you're using your emotions to well, you're not you no you're using facts to guide your emotions. You're not using your emotions to guide facts, so it still falls in line with objective morality. So objective morality, as contrary to what the general populace believes, is not a contradiction in terms. It's not saying that it's morally objective. It's to say that it's objectively moral. It's to say that what you do is you find out what is fact, and then you align your emotions with said fact, so that way you're effectively aligning yourself with facts, which is actually what I just
I
said.
mean,
But yeah,
if I could just stop you there for a second. I mean, the
go ahead.
first thing, the first idea that comes to mind is the first problem, I should say, that comes to mind
Sure.
is how can you make facts guide your emotions? I'll put it that way for now. Um, just because I've forgotten. I'm sorry, I've forgotten what I was going to say. But
All good. How can you make facts guide your emotions? Well, say for instance, evolutionary traits has us as modifying and adapting living beings. Now we modify and adapt for benefit, so that already makes benefit within itself an objective thing because evolution in itself is an objective, universal process. So we follow philosophically what these objective things do, and basically we use that to guide ourselves and our random chaos controlled brains, like I'm talking about emotions, and we use the facts to guide those emotions so that way we're more aligned
so
rather than being
you
so spontaneous and chaotic and what's in it? Wait, no, hold up. I think it's like libertarian anarchistic.
I mean, let's say basically what you're saying is that it's objectively good that humans exist,
Effectively, yes.
and that's basically what your entire argument hinges upon.
The whole objective moral of life is that it exists. The whole because life itself is objective and it forced itself to be based on a seemingly perfect circumstance, but
I
as
mean,
we all know, it's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect. It's in fact one of these cases of an occasion that came about due to probability and circumstance. So we know that life is in fact a universal process that's based on the objectivity of evolution. So within that within itself determines the whole the foundational philosophy of objective benefit, which is to ensure to move forward that we prepare ourselves with the most amount of benefit that has the least amount of detriment. And that within itself works for different circumstances. It's say for instance one circumstance will not reflect another circumstance. Say for instance the choices you will make with one circumstance to reach an objective moral may be completely different for another circumstance.
okay. I mean, I absolutely agree with that.
Very good.
Uh, the problem that I've got though is okay. So when it comes down to morality, is it objectively, and I know you've just said that each circumstance is different, and I fully understand that, but are you suggesting that objectively human life is more important than animals, or that the planet is more important than humans? I mean, where's the order, if you get what I mean?
Um, the order is definitely subjective. That's an example of something that is definitely subjective. Life itself, the value of life in itself is a necessity based on where we're at. If the Earth is destroyed, then the objective worth of life on this planet is therefore removed due to the planet lacking life in the first place. So life begets life. The only objective moral of life is its existence and to ensure that it stays in relatively good nick. And that's all based on the fact that an objective process has actually given us emotions to justify right and wrong subjectively. So there is an objective that is in fact justifying certain subjectivities.
Could you give me an example? Or, I mean,
Um,
obviously,
well, first of all, evolution has given us these traits, these emotions. We've basically come to be subjective, highly intelligent beings, and that's all from an objective process.
okay,
So
that makes sense.
yeah, because objectivity can beget subjectivity when it becomes more and more complex. An objective process has actually gone to the point where it's become so complicated that it's actually begotten a subjective sentient being. So with that objective process being the causal factor, the big foundation of everything that is sentient, we know that there is some truth to our emotions. Now, it's not always right because emotions inherently are random. Now, that doesn't say that it's impossible for a subjective to beget an objective. Say, for instance, we as subjective beings have actually created objective processes, e.g., science, philosophy. These things are objective,
Well, I'll
and they
stop you
always
there.
act.
Philosophy, I wouldn't count in that same group. I mean, science you can say is completely objective, but philosophy is entirely down to the personality. That's surely a subjective thing.
Okay, okay. What's science?
Science is a rather broad
Now you're
topic.
delving into philosophy.
Okay, so what is science? The very question is a philosophical question. That
Exactly.
right, okay. I mean, that's fair. You can ask philosophical questions that are based upon facts, like what is the meaning of life? I think that's a
Yep.
terrible example of
Yep.
a terrible way of wording that question. But
Yeah. The meaning of life is really simple. It's not as so as a big definitive answer. It's in fact a very ambiguous one. It is in fact we've already found it, and people just aren't satisfied with it. We are subjective and complex beings that are very random by very nature. Um, we can't have a direct purpose. So it is in fact life is what we make of it because
I agree.
every individual person is completely different. So there's not going to be one fundamental that will overrule all. Say, for instance, within objectivity in itself, we know for a fact not everyone's gonna follow an objective moral due to the fact we're so completely different, and sometimes we take our intrinsic urges over what would actually be beneficial, which is why we tend to opt for subjective morality rather than objective morality. And the people who tend to scorn objective morality tend to be people who are atheists who are just fed up with people who are religious posing that argument for objective morality based on God existing. But the thing about it is, God doesn't exist. We can prove objective morality without God. So I can understand the disdain that atheists would have for me posing the argument of for objective morality using something as weak as objective morality exists just because philosophy, which is what people have construed my argument to be. They've taken
Yeah,
it as face value and seen it as this guy's a complete not adult.
we
So
live in a very ADD generation, and especially
yeah.
on YouTube. You know, if you don't say something that makes sense within the first 5 seconds, people are
Hmm.
very likely to click that dislike button, make up the
Yep.
minds, and walk away. So I
Dead
know where you're
right.
coming from.
Yeah,
Um,
and the thing about it is people are very quick to jump to emotions themselves. You see, the whole point of defending subjective morality from objective morality is to basically perpetuate paradigms to keep this whole idealistic tradition of valuing your own emotions over others and effectively valuing emotion over fact in effect. So people who have certain ideologies that do not line up with certain other ideologies that could be, in fact, true and more beneficial, people will completely scorn it. They'll scrutinize the fuck out of it until it's actually becomes fucking dust, which is absolutely sad because sometimes might technically can make right, and it's so fucking sad because sometimes the might inherently is fucking wrong.
yeah, we could talk about the Muslim crisis.
Exactly.
Absolutely, that's obviously the correct answer in most people's minds would be might versus might. We're not going to stop these problems with words. We
Yeah.
can't stop people from crossing the borders or anything. So yeah, in that respect, morality kind of almost feels like it goes out the window, doesn't it?
Exactly, because it's all completely dissonant. It's cognitive dissonance in a very big group. So it's like dissonance within dissonance. It's like a big fucking inception of dissonance. It's one. It's just to put it short. It's just a big fucking clusterfuck, and it's not much. There's not much you can really do about it when it's really that explosive and extreme. There's not much you can do. Like there was certain programs here and there, like begging the question of can fundamentalists or can fanaticals be de-radicalized? And that's a very very difficult question to answer. You need to pull up empirical evidence to do it, and that's the kind of stuff that you need mechanistic, philosophical, and psychological data to do, which is very difficult to attain or
Yeah,
ascertain.
yeah, absolutely.
So
The group think
this is
plays a large part as well. Isolating the subject would be the first stage.
yeah,
Isolate them from the group, and then you can start to break down those barriers. But
yeah. And frankly, the whole cause of it is the hadiths in Islam. Um, frankly, it's all hadiths are imams' interpretation of the Quran. Now, most of these imams, by very fucking obvious, blatant nature, are warmongering cunts, completely and utterly. Fucking rape apologists. They were pedophilia apologists. All kinds of different fucking of personality and mental disorders and flaws. I mean, just look at some of the fucking writing. Some of the writing actually advocates the death of apostates or people who are just what's it, not Muslim. They are
yeah,
literally just that radical, and they will literally take an interpretation like, say, for instance, you can only fight off the invaders of a mosque when they attack. Instead, they interpret that as kill all people who defy Islam. It's really that dumb.
I
It,
I 100% agree with you, and I do think it's terrible. It's a backwards nation. The problem,
yeah,
of course, starts when we start trying to integrate these people into our societies, in my opinion, because
yeah.
they don't know our laws, they don't even know our
Hmm.
language, let alone our laws, and they're so used to, they've grown up with these traditions, they've had them for generations. So,
Of course.
it's an endemic problem.
Yeah, and the thing about it is these traditions are like what's it? They they're very regressive and they permeate incredibly deeply throughout the society. So within each Muslim that came from these what's it these for the type of government that's run
Yeah,
theocratic governments. Basically, the whole land is instilled with semi fanatical with a semi-fanatical paradigm and ideology. So basically, what they've got is complete and utter ignorance to anything outside of that. Hence, why they'd be so difficult to assimilate in other cultures because
exactly.
they're so fucking ignorant.
I totally agree. That's 100%. There's nothing that we can really do about it. They
Well,
don't even know they're ignorant.
yeah, exactly. But the thing is, there is something that can be done globally, is to set up a more progressive society and to make us more intellectual rather than to keep us so dumb, which is why I think Bernie Sanders, for instance, is absolutely necessary due to his plan of basically, I think it was making college tuition free.
Okay, I honestly don't know too much about American politics. I know that he was
Yeah, true,
talking
neither
about.
do I.
I know he was talking
But
about certain things that I would consider very similar to what England already have, and I'm sure
yeah.
Australia and New Zealand have similar.
And
Uh,
in Sweden, the country that has the highest percentage of innovation within technology, this nation actually pays their students to go to school
yeah, there you
because
go.
it knows for a fact that it's going to provide money just by virtue of being intellectual, by being intelligent, by being fucking smart. What other adjective can I put to intelligence?
if
Like
if
seriously, these people are the cream of the fucking crop, and they're profitable.
if we go back 20 years, 30 years, and you look at society, the people who went to college were competing against the people who didn't go to college within a country. Everything was much more isolated. The
Yeah,
internet and the European Union and everything that has made the world a smaller place now, they understand, the Swedes understand that it is their natives versus every other country. So if they educate their entire nation, they're no longer competing with each other for these jobs. They're now
yeah,
competing with a world of idiots, mostly
yeah.
Americans, you know. So they hit the nail on the head, and I think Iceland are not far behind them by the sounds of it.
Oh, definitely. Same thing with the Netherlands. That big cluster of countries up in the northwest Europe.
Yeah,
These people are pushing forward such incredible progressiveness. It's and it shows. Every single thing that they've done has almost been, well, at least on the surface, perfect. As to the actual the internal methods, whether they're actually what's it efficacious, that there need to be some sort of further investigation. But I definitely know for a fact it works. We all
the
know the fact that whatever system Sweden, Iceland, Denmark, especially Denmark, and Netherlands, Norway, are using, whatever methods they're using, it fucking works, and they're mostly socialistic.
and they're
I mean,
mostly
just look at the
secular,
success. But yeah,
mostly atheistic nations that have been run in a very secular way.
of course, because atheists tend to be more progressive, and that is statistically the case. Like most, you won't see you will seldom see a conservative fucking atheist. Like seriously, because atheists aren't run by traditional values and shit like that, unless they've got some sort of internal some sort like conflict where they're basically trying to still live with the whole childhood being brought up with traditions, and they agree with the
Exactly.
traditions type deal. Like you will only find that, and they'll be like I don't know, 2.5% of atheists, and atheists within themselves are only like I think it was like 1.1% of not of all unreligious, but like 1.1% within the unreligious group. It's like there is only a very small portion of people within the whole group of not religious people that are actually um gonna actually qualify themselves as not qualify but they're actually gonna call
Identify.
themselves atheists.
Yeah.
It's
And
yeah,
let's talk about this for a minute as well, because there are many different types of atheists I've noticed as well. I'm sure you, like me, were probably born in a secular nation into an atheistic society. Uh,
fair enough.
you were you? Is that a fair statement to make?
I mean, culturally diverse would be
Yeah.
more apt
But what about your
of a
family?
description.
Like the way that you were brought up within your family, were you taught about God or any of that?
My grandparents definitely they were pretty much my whole family is has secular inclinations and proclivities.
Right.
Um, so effectively, I've got the majority of my family are Christian, but there's a small portion of them that are actually full blown atheists. And I'd say that would be because the family is just so accepting due to this whole nation being pretty accepting as well. So
Yeah, I mean,
basically, and yeah, go ahead.
the reason that I bring it up is because obviously, I mean, I was born into a family of what I would consider atheists. They don't call themselves that though. They don't care. This is the point. You know what I mean? The conversation
Yeah,
of God came up when I was young. They'd simply ask the question, "Do you believe in God?" and leave it at that. And they didn't say anything else other than that. They just left me to my own devices.
yeah,
And
which is the best thing to do.
I agree entirely. And it wasn't until I was much older that I started wondering why people even believed in God. It seemed like such an obvious fairy tale to me. Um,
Yeah,
and I've noticed that there's the other type of atheists who are converts from that deeply religious background, who have converted to atheism as opposed to being brought up as atheists. And I think they stand out so obviously. I'm thinking
yeah,
mainly people like Matt Dillahunty,
oh
um,
yeah,
who you can so clearly see those religious connotations still deeply embedded within his
yeah,
consciousness.
definitely.
I think that's dangerous because there's too many of those people online, and they claim to speak for us, and they seem to take it as a given that everybody is like that, you know, and that
Yeah,
worries me.
exactly. Yeah, definitely, definitely. But I want to actually address something.
Uh-huh.
And this was actually a quote from TJ himself. No atheist worth his weight in salt would claim that there is no God definitively. Now, I want to address that directly. Now, first of all, he calls God an unfalsifiable hypothesis, which I agree with. It is, in fact, an unfalsifiable hypothesis. Unfalsifiable being defined as not being capable of being proved nor disproven, and a hypothesis being defined as a supposition or a proposed explanation made on the basis of limited evidence as a starting point for further investigation. Now, first of all, the hypothesis is in fact just a claim without any evidence, in this case especially, and they assert it to be true straight off the bat. So that defeats itself straight away. Then second of all, the two adjectives that define God Himself, the unfalsifiability of God, is effectively an oxymoron by virtue of not being able to be proven nor disproven. Those two adjectives within themselves contradict themselves and thereby make God within himself a paradox which cannot exist within the parameters of reality, and he cannot exist outside of the universe or multiverse, as nothing exists outside of the universe and multiverse. Nothing isn't tangible. Nothing is nothing.
Yep,
So
I 100% agree, and
God doesn't exist.
I also don't believe that there could be anything called a god. I mean, definitely,
Yeah,
for so many
exactly.
reasons. My first reason is nobody can tell me what a god is, right?
Yeah,
And every single person you ask, like, avoids the question. And
yeah,
secondly, most of them attribute it to one particular characteristic, which is all powerful,
yeah,
uh, and that's an absolute impossibility.
yeah,
All powerful is literally impossible, therefore God cannot possibly exist. It's as simple as
yeah.
that. Sorry, I'm ill. I'll try to cough off the microphone. I'll let you speak a minute
All
while I have a
good, all
cough.
good, all good. So all powerful, in fact, asserts that he would have tangible control over the universe, but from the state of either being in a realm which is in fact within itself an oxymoronic, unfalsifiable hypothesis. So, say for instance, I want to first preface this by saying that supernatural and angelic and supernatural realms, these things within themselves are unfalsifiable hypotheses, and they are not justified by God Himself being categorized as omnipotent, omniscient, etc. Because that's a two quote Q fallacy by effectively justifying one erroneous claim with another erroneous claim. So that's effectively what people do. They use two quote Qs. And they're effectively using fallacious arguments to prove their point, which in themselves, within itself, is inherently fucking wrong. straight off the fucking back, a bat, effectively shooting themselves in the foot by making it so intricate so that way it sounds like they're on the right track, but it turns out they're totally on the wrong fucking track.
Exactly.
So the supernatural does not exist by virtue of being an unfalsifiable hypothesis, effectively attributing the the realm based on God's existence, but God doesn't exist, so therefore the supernatural couldn't exist. But the supernatural, being an unfalsifiable hypothesis within itself, wouldn't exist in the first place.
Exactly.
So that also qualifies with ghosts and other apparitions and things like that. So that's ghosts debunked. That's all unfalsifiable hypotheses debunked, and that is realms debunked. So there we go.
So let's go on to ghosts a second then. Is there
Yeah.
any possibility that maybe a creature has evolved into some kind of spirit-like being that, humans, if they saw it, they would say that's a ghost? Is it possible that they're actually seeing some form of animal that has naturally formed in that way?
Evolution is dependent on an actual physical being. Something that's ethereal is not something that's capable of evolving in the first place. You don't see like electrical things forming within thin air to
Okay,
become intricate
that's
things.
fair.
Electricity
So
within itself is spontaneous and all over the place. So there would be no way for something like that to form into an actual intricate design without actually just becoming just completely diffusing throughout the entire atmosphere.
what if it
There'd be
was
no way. It needs to have some sort of biological architecture.
What if it was many, many creatures, like a hive almost of very small creatures that almost looked like mist? Maybe that's their camouflage. Maybe they're like
Yeah,
chameleon flies, so you
sure.
can kind of see through them. What do you reckon?
Well, they'd first have to be empirically proven, which it hasn't.
We'd have to catch one. We have to catch a ghost. I'm
Yeah,
pr I,
effectively.
I'm pretty sure that ghosts um, don't exist, obviously.
Oh yeah.
But if they did, I'm pretty sure it could be proven scientifically that they were animals that evolved naturally.
Exactly,
That,
exactly, and it'd be very quick because there are a lot of ghost sightings, and
yeah,
especially all these ghost shows where they embellish, effectively using psychological methods that basically perpetuate shock. Effectively, all these ghost shows are dependent on effectively relating to the viewer's sense of being scared at the drop of a hat. So
absolutely.
effectively, basically, they jump, then everyone else jumps, and
Yeah,
therefore that creates the movement, that creates the ghost within itself. It's someone's misinterpretation of their environment, leading to group misinterpretation of the environment. So it's all psychological, and it's
it's
all false.
it's
It's all
pattern
bullshit.
seeking, isn't it? The human
Yeah,
mind is designed; it specifically seeks patterns out, and especially
yeah,
faces. You know,
yeah,
this is why we see faces in clouds and things like that. But
yep,
it's funny. I probably shouldn't mention this, especially since it's going live. But what the fuck, you only live once. So
yeah.
I started seeing a girl recently, and I didn't expect in England to meet somebody who considered themselves to be religious. So it didn't come
Oh
up
yeah.
for a long time. But she believes that the ghost of her dad is watching her, and she
All
calls
right.
herself a Christian. I asked her why she called herself a Christian, and she said so that she can get married in a church. I said that doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
And then her what was her second answer? I said it doesn't make any sense. Oh, and she said second answer was I've been baptized. I was born a Christian. I was baptized. And I
Mm.
said, well, you're an adult now. You can choose your own path. You don't have to be a Christian. Do you know what I mean? You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to call yourself a Christian. And this is when she started talking about things like ghosts and spirits. And she's got a friend who's nearly died and seen the other side, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And so it's a shocking situation for me to find myself in, really, because for me, up until now, it's always just been an online debate, a mental fascination. Uh,
Yeah. The whole thing about these after afterlife experiences. These people, my dad has actually died twice on the way to the hospital after having a severe car crash where he broke 8 ribs,
Holy
punctured both
shit.
his lungs. I'm pretty sure he also wait no, he collapsed 2 lungs. He punctured his kidneys.
Hell.
There was an incredibly severe internal body damage, but because he was in good nick, he stayed alive, which is
Wow.
absolutely fucking incredible. That's like a 0.01% chance.
Yeah.
Um, but he died twice on the helicopter on the way to, I think, Royal Perth Hospital, which is in Perth, of course, Western
Yeah.
Australia. But he said that he had a vision where he saw his dead brother that he just knew um, was him. And of course, I'm named after him due to that experience.
Right.
Um, so his name is Darren, my uncle, and he died as a baby in his crib. So
Shit.
yeah, I know it's pretty deep. But the thing about it is, he was basically saying that everything was hyper realistic, effectively. So, and this kinds of things are very indicative of DMT being released. DMT being the main chemical in the brain that creates hallucinogenic
Yeah.
visions. So these kinds of things, especially, are more consistent in um, uh, almost near death experiences when your body is about to shut down,
Yeah.
and when your body has shut down but your brain has 7 minutes to still be operable, and when it's still operating it has that ability to still basically run those the chemical of DMT through the brain effectively, giving your mind one last chance to hallucinate,
Yeah.
which basically would be the case where it would hallucinate and effectively create these visions based on what you have um, stored in your mind during your life. And if you're seeking religiosity, or if you were religious in the first place, you are almost destined to see these religious kinds of
Absolutely.
imageries, either of dead relatives or all kinds of different things that would strengthen your own faith. And faith, of course, being tantamount to delusion, this definitely heightens the experience because these
Absolutely.
delusions are of grandeur.
Yeah. You see things so vividly that you'd previously imagined.
Yeah. I mean, look at Cult of Dusty. Cult of Dusty made a video where basically he took DMT and he started seeing elephants in in his couch. I'm pretty sure the video's up on YouTube, but I'm pretty sure it shows him actually going through the experience and then recounting or relaying basically
Yeah.
what he saw, and everything to him was vivid. That's the same thing with hallucinations after and just before death. When your body's shutting down, that's full power to straight to the brain. So your brain has straight up the ability to hallucinate whatever the fuck it wants to.
Yeah. It sounds like a fun time, to be honest.
Yeah.
The last few minutes of life, just a total DMT overdose.
Oh yeah, definitely. But not to say that it wouldn't be without pain, because when the
No.
body shuts down, yeah,
Yeah.
that would be painful.
You know, I was just having this conversation recently with a Christian, and he asked me, as an atheist, what I thought happened after death, and I said it's not after death that I'm worried about; it's the final moments. You know, when you have a dream and your dream goes on for seemingly hours, but really only minutes have passed in
Mm.
real life. Well,
Yeah.
imagine what it's like when your brain is finally shutting down for the last time. Imagine how long
Yeah.
that final experience, and it will be painful, is going to
Oh yeah.
last. That might feel like an eternity. That might feel like hell. So,
Yeah. It'd be a kaleidoscope of different emotions being completely so extremely poignant to oneself that it'd be difficult to even express your emotions physically because one, your body's shutting down first of all, and
yeah,
second of all, it'd be just such an overwhelming amount of emotion.
absolutely. And that neatly ties back to my overarching point in this topic. The problem that I've got with it, as both mine and your story showed, is that it's so deeply emotional. It's hard to
Yeah,
even
exactly.
broach it with these people, you
Hmm.
know. I mean,
Exactly.
I can't talk about these things with my girlfriend. It's
Yes,
like,
dead right, dead right, dead right. Because whenever I would broach the subject, basically I'd be told that, oh, if I'm trying to use a scientific method, therefore I think he's lying.
yeah, exactly.
It's all emotional grunting. It's all about
And they get
I'm being
defensive.
insulted.
Yes, exactly. I tried to bring up the concept just as a sorry, just as an idea. I said, what if the brain is um, just like an antenna, and Gaia is the spirit, right? And in the back of your brain, all your ideas and things are actually the same as everybody else's ideas. We're all just receiving a signal from one overall
Yeah,
spirit, right? I just thought it was quite a nice little mental exercise while we're walking to town.
yeah.
And she immediately took it as an insult because it would mean that,
What?
yeah, exactly. Just immediately shot me down. And she was saying, well, we've all got a soul, haven't we? And really timidly, I mean super timid, I sat there and I was like, well, it's never been proven that we have any kind of soul. I mean, what is a soul? And she got so mad at me, like
Oh,
properly
give me a
offended.
break.
In it,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, it worries me a bit.
Oh, yeah, it can be really frustrating to deal with that kind of level of delusion. Basically, it's unjustified, and this is the kind of thing they accept it because they're brought up to think that, or at least they teach themselves to think that faith is the only way to find truth, and faith gets you nowhere. Faith sets you up for defeat straight away, and
So
we can test scientifically. We can test faith in a number of different ways. I can take it upon faith that God will guide me. Like, say, for instance, I had a blindfold and I just decided to run in one direction after spinning around in circles near a cliff, that God would guide me away from the cliff. I mean, if I fall in, that already defeats that argument in the first
yeah.
place.
Do you remember the meme that went round a while ago? That was "Let Jesus take the wheel" or something.
Yeah,
That
I
would
think
have been
so.
brilliant. If only all the Christians had let Jesus take the wheel, we wouldn't have a problem with Christians.
Yeah. The whole thing about it is they take it on probability, which they don't fucking understand. They just say that faith, oh, it's given me this answer, it's given me that answer, but it hasn't given them every answer. Every time they take things on faith, it's all about probability. And to them, they justify that by saying, oh, that's God's way of saying, not yet for you, my son. Uh, this is my gift to you, or some shit like that. Or, I don't know, maybe you should investigate it yourself type deal. That's the process of you actually going through it yourself. You're coming across these corollaries by yourself. You're not coming across it by divine intervention. I mean, give me a fucking break.
Next time I have you on the show, I'll definitely have some videos lined up so that we can watch them in the background and give
Very
people
good.
clear examples of this kind of thing.
Yeah, it's
Obviously,
complete fucking nonsense.
yeah, I agree. Obviously, this is the first Hysteria live, so welcome to that, and thank you for being here with me. Um,
Awesome, thank you.
Unfortunately, it does mean that I didn't have anything set up, so
All good, all good, all good. Good. It was a good convo.
yeah, man, yeah, definitely. Good to see you and everything. And for everybody
Awesome.
at home, please subscribe if you like this kind of thing. We'll have them in the future. And goodbye. Have fun.
Yes.